In this video, I'm going to show you from start to finish exactly the path I took from biology major to financial management consultant with absolutely zero business, accounting, or finance experience. Hey everyone, my name is Faisal. I'm a former Big Four consultant with over 5 years of experience under my belt, and I made my start with absolutely no business as my background. Let's get started. So starting with a little bit of background, we'll talk about college real quick and a little bit of post-college, but I got my degree as a biology major. I did this kind of because that's what I was interested in at the time, and I felt like I was pretty good at it. I wanted to go pre-med for a little bit, but decided not to just because it was going to be a lot of time and money going into it, and I felt as though it wasn't really in my heart at the time to make that kind of investment. I decided to stick with biology with the hope that I would be able to leverage it to fit into other industries and other experiences, which I ended up being able to do, which was great. Fast forward a little bit, I graduated in December of 2019, and for those of you who know, that is right before COVID hit hard. And like many others, I really struggled to find a job. I was applying to hundreds of jobs. I even had a spreadsheet with literally all the jobs that I applied to. It had a bunch of data that I tried to collect on like how many responded, how many didn't respond, the company name, the person I reached out to, all those kinds of things. And it all led to this big break when I got a call back from this small consulting firm in my area to become a management consultant for them. It was an entry-level position, so it didn't pay very well. It did give me a lot of the skills and tools that I learned that I'm still carrying with me to today. So some early lessons I took from that job were to really just be responsive. Always respond back to the person that needs something from you, whether it's a client, a team member, your boss, your manager, whoever it is. Try to respond as promptly as possible, and that was one of the first things I learned as a consultant, and I think that's something I'm still carrying with me to today. I always try to respond within 5 to 30 minutes, even with like a hey, I don't really know the answer to this right now, but I'll get back to you when I do know the answer. So after about a year, I decided that it was time for me to kind of make a move into a larger consulting firm. The one that I had my eye on was EY. EY is a huge, global, reputable, and well-respected firm that I had the pleasure of joining shortly after my first year as a consultant. Luckily, I had a referral to the firm, which kind of got my foot in the door and got me that interview, which eventually I, did really well on, and it allowed me to get a position with them. There are some lessons I took from my first consulting job that led me to this interview with EY, because, it's not really enough to just say like, hey, you're a consultant. There's a lot of things you have to look into the specific role that you're applying for and optimizing a lot of the things that you did with the requirements of the position. So after I had my interview, it went great. I actually got an offer within about a week or two, and I doubled my yearly salary just from this one move, which was ridiculous. But it makes sense considering there's a lot of smaller firms who just can't really afford to pay much for their entry-level staff. But EY is one of those companies that is able to, and a lot of the Big Four firms are able to pay pretty well for entry-level consultants. It was really a huge shift from a small firm to a much larger firm. I believe the first firm I was in was about maybe like 200 people, maybe 200 people or less. And EY is about 300 to 400,000 worldwide. So just from the first week with EY, it was very different. It was, it was corporate. That's kind of the best way to describe it. You got your employee number, your welcome week, which goes through a lot of trainings, but also a lot of team building with other new hires. And you're kind of like one of thousands, because think about it, like EY is constantly churning and hiring people virtually every day. And they have pools and pools of people who are applying to their job constantly. If you get a job at EY, you're going to be among thousands of people who got jobs the same day as you. And that was kind of my experience as well. So after I got staffed as a consultant, I was doing some audit remediation work, which is briefly, when a company gets audited, they need to make changes based on what the auditor finds. So my job was to assist my client with fixing a lot of the things that the auditor told them they needed to fix at a very high level. And that's kind of what I do now. I'm a little bit more strategic in my role, so I kind of serve as an advisor to my clients, advising them on things that might help their business overall, particular paths that they can take based on some other clients I worked with that kind of help them move forward and enhance their business business in some shape or form. So what are some lessons I learned on this path? Because this is where I am now, and I'm very happy. I actually recently left EY to come to a different firm. It's more of a mid-sized firm, about 1,500 to 2,000 people, which I think is a sweet spot right now in 2025, 2026, depending on when you're watching, for a lot of these firms that are going to make a name for themselves. I mean, this is a topic for another video, but I think mid-sized firms are definitely the way to go if you're trying to break into consulting now. That's kind of one of the lessons I learned, especially kind of small to mid-sized firm is definitely a place to look at if you're trying to break into consulting, especially for someone who doesn't have a traditional accounting business background. So another thing I learned is it's not only about who you know, but it's about what you know. I was able to take a lot of my experience as a biology major, researching kind of my critical thinking skills, and change it to fit a lot of the skills that a typical consultant would have. Yeah, I didn't have the traditional accounting work, traditional business work, but a lot of that stuff you can really learn on the job. You don't really need to study these things, in my personal opinion, to do really well in consulting, because at the end of the day, consulting is advising work. You're doing partly the actual boots on the ground work of, the budget, the finances, all those things, but in a huge aspect, you're also an advisor to your client. So a lot of these things require soft skills, kind of higher level skills that aren't super technical and nitty gritty, that apply to a lot of industries. Also, volume is huge. You need to constantly be applying. Apply. Again, I apply to dozens, if not hundreds of jobs every single day. I apply to probably 20 jobs just so I can get my name onto as many papers as possible, as many eyes as possible. At the time, it was a good strategy. I think volume will never not be a good strategy, just because you being in front of more eyes gives you more tickets to getting that job. But now I think it's a combination of volume and refactor. And I'll get into this into a later video, but essentially you want to apply to a series of jobs, get a lot of data on that. What are the particular points you put in your resume? How did those work? Did you hear less emails back? Did you hear more? Are you getting more reach outs on LinkedIn? Are you not? These are the things you need to keep track of. And again, I'll get into this into another video, but a lot of these things you can keep track of, and it can help you refactor your resume to actually get more looks and more reach outs from recruiters. Your skills are absolutely crucial. You really need to hone in on a lot of these high ticket skills, and a lot of these are high level skills, so they're not really technical. Like, you need to be able to do a monthly reconciliation. Yes, that's great, and I think that'll help you get into a specific financial management role, but there's a lot of higher level, and by high level I mean kind of 10,000 foot view, like not super nitty gritty skills that will allow you to kind of break into consulting as a more beginner level, staff level person. Another lesson I learned is you need to be able to transfer a lot of your experience to fit a role. So let's just say you work in real estate. Real estate has a lot of particular skills that translate well into consulting. So for example, you're constantly dealing with clients. You're constantly having to, reach out to clients, write reports on particular listings or housing. And again, this won't be a one-for-one on, skills from industry to industry, but it's the way you transfer that experience into the role that you want and kind of make your experience work with the particular job description of the role you want, which is super, super, super crucial. And finally, your differences can actually be a strength. For example, me being a biology major, I was able to leverage that in saying that for some reason biology majors are thought of as smarter than some other majors. And I mean, yeah, it's a harder degree. There's a lot of, math and science associated with it, which was kind of in my favor. That helped me get a lot of these callbacks and a lot of these interviews. But when I did get these interviews, I was able to position that in the sense that, yes, I was a biology major. I had to use a lot of critical thinking skills. I had to use a lot of researching skills, a lot of reporting skills. Again, those are all skills that are highly, highly transferable into the consulting space, which I think was really refreshing for a lot of people to see someone who was able to identify these high level skills, but also someone who's not from a traditional background who might be able to think a little bit differently about a particular problem. So let me know. I kind of want to hear in the comments what fields you're currently in and why you're trying to break out of them. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you for watching. I'll be making plenty more videos on these topics, and I will see you all in the next one.